We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Good morning. Happy Groundhog's Day, everyone. My mom has already texted me and told me that the groundhog did not see his shadow, which means we'll get an early spring this year. So good thing the groundhog is in Pennsylvania instead of Colorado, because there definitely would have been a shadow in Colorado. It's a very sunny day today. We are going to begin by greeting one another on the board. All right, thank you, Don. And I do want to say congratulations to Kathy. She's getting a new puppy. Congratulations. All right, so let me share our statement of purpose. We affirm one truth self as the only truth. We live this value by embracing what is helpful on the path of awakening without idolizing any spiritual doctrine as truth. That is our fourth core value, which is a core value I wanted to remind us of today before we begin today's reading and homily. This says again that we affirm one truth as the only, one true self as the only truth. Everything else is a symbol that points towards that truth at best. And so today we'll be sharing a symbol. I just want to point out that it is a symbol, a helpful symbol. It's not intended to be the truth. Before we begin the devotional part of our service, let me share some announcements. First of all, the teachings of Nisargadatta Maharaj, which is an Awakening Together class, is open for registration. This is a pretty amazing class. It has 3 objectives. One is to allow inner spiritual intuition to guide you to a small portion of a teaching, so you can go deeper within that teaching, which is exactly what will happen in this class. You'll select something very small, and then you'll go very, very deep into just that one small portion. As you do so, you will learn to write from beyond yourself or beyond your mind in order to realize clarity that comes from beyond your mind, or just to realize additional depth in your commitment to truth. You will also meditate on the sense of I am, which is Nisargadatta's way of saying it. Michael Langford's way of saying it is you will practice awareness, watching awareness meditation. This class begins on March 3rd. It's 4 weeks, so it runs through March 24th. It will be offered on Tuesday afternoons from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern, which is noon to 2 here in the Mountain Time. The facilitator is going to be Reverend Meg Reinhardt. Homework for this class, which really means that deep inner contemplation, begins on February 25th, which is 1 week before the class begins. Therefore, registration ends on February 23rd. Because it's a 4-week class, the cost is $80. The textbook that you will need to go with it is I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj. And this class will be offered in Zoom. You can get more information on our website by going to the Retreats and Classes menu and then looking underneath the Classes submenu. Also, we have another retreat coming up very soon at the Retreat House. This month's retreat is a self-inquiry retreat, which focuses on the self-inquiry practice taught by Ramana Maharshi. And in fact, everyone who attends the retreat will get a book of quotes by Ramana Maharshi about self-inquiry. Our intention is to get very skilled at self-inquiry at this retreat so that we can use self-inquiry to help us awaken to the true self. Goal, we're going to practice self-inquiry in a lot of different ways. We'll practice guided self-inquiry, which is like a guided meditation. We'll practice meditative self-inquiry, which means you'll be silent, practicing self-inquiry on your own. We'll practice self-inquiry with a partner, which is similar to dyads, except the purpose is narrowed. And you will also practice journaling based on self-inquiry. So 4 different types of self-inquiry. And in addition to that, we will contemplate and discuss quotes about self-inquiry by Ramana Maharshi. So they say the best way to learn a language is immersion. This is a week of immersion and self-inquiry, the best way to learn that language. That retreat is February 17 to 21. It is currently open as well for registration, and you can find all of the details that you need on our website under retreats and classes, this time under the retreats menu. Also, this afternoon is the Puppy Bowl, right? Doesn't that come before the Super Bowl? Yesterday I watched the Old Dog Bowl, the Senior Dog Bowl. They had dogs in that Senior Dog Bowl as old as 17 years old available for adoption. The Puppy Bowl is, again, to highlight some dogs that are available for adoption. But I think probably more people in America are looking forward to what they call the Super Bowl, some kind of other game that has to do with humans instead of puppies. Can't imagine what anybody would want to watch, but apparently some do. But there's something going on here too, something very important. Tonight we have a special member meeting. That special member meeting is at 8 o'clock Eastern time, which is 6 o'clock here in the mountains. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to announce a change in Regina and Jacqueline's roles in Awakening Together. Some of y'all have heard a little bit about this. Tonight you'll get all of the facts. We're also going to introduce a new MPP curriculum that will be starting in February. Instead of being offered in a class format in Zoom, this is going to be offered through the forum. So you'll be able to come and learn about that tonight. Now, if you absolutely have to watch that human Super Bowl, please know that this meeting is being recorded and you can go back and listen to it tomorrow. It's an important meeting, so don't miss it either way. So now what I'm going to do is turn the mic back over to Dawn. My topic today is, what if consciousness is an addict? And this song that she's about to play, it represents the addiction. This is a song by Queen. It's called Don't Stop Me. Isn't that song a great representation of the addiction? It's just great. But let's see if we can come down off that high enough now to get into some devotional prayer. I'll lead the prayer. So my prayer is directed at the mind. I ask the mind to listen. I ask the mind to hear. And I ask the mind to surrender to wisdom. I ask the mind to be willing to give up itself, to give up its addiction, to surrender to the bliss of the heart, even though it thinks out is better than in. I ask it to come and taste in and see if it is not willing to disappear there. Amen. And now what I would like to do is turn the mic over to Lin Castaldo. She is my reader today. She'll be reading several entries from my 7 Steps journal, which kind of tell a story. And most of them, all except for the last entry, are from step 6. The very last entry, if I remember correctly, is from step 7. Lin, I'm turning the mic over to you.
Thank you, Regina. And this is from the 7 Steps. Outward attention results in outward experience, and that results in more outward. Outward begets outward. Inward begets inward. It is just a matter of where attention is focused. It isn't more complicated than that. Habits form, and I can form a new habit. What do I want? Attention directed outward is called mind. To awaken, mind must be destroyed. The destruction of mind is not so mysterious. It is the reversal of an unconscious habit, the habit of focusing outward. Awakening is not so impossible. It is forming a new unconscious habit, the habit of focusing inward all of the time. That means reversing the habit of attention focused outward so that the attention is focused inward all the time, consciously, automatically, effortlessly. I learned to walk so that now I walk unconsciously, automatically, and effortlessly. I learned the English language in the same way. It's like riding a bike. Put effort until it is unconscious, automatic, and effortless. That's not so mysterious. That's not impossible. Just a matter of desire. When a person dies, attention addicted to outward focus will seek more out. Without a brain to look through, it will go about creating another brain, body, through which to engage in outward focus. This is the beginning of another person, another temporary life. Incarnation is not the continuation of a person's soul. Person's souls have no real existence. Person souls are the temporary effect of impersonal attention focused outwardly. The brain. The sense of I comes from the brain's conditioning. When the brain ends, that conditioning ends, and the sense of I, person's soul, also ends. However, if the addiction to outward focus is not ended during that, the addiction will seek its next fix. Reincarnation is the effect of it out, wanting to be focused out. Problems, suffering, and pleasure are all outward experiences, which attention is addicted to, since attention is and they are all outward. To mind, pleasure is not better than suffering. Mind exists attention, and anything that feeds the attention, the addiction is good. This is important to acknowledge. You will keep attention out because of interest in pleasure, then pleasure is mind's drug of choice. Me out, it says. If you will keep attention out because of being entangled in suffering, suffering is mind's drug of choice. Just give me out, it says. If you will keep attention out of the opportunity to solve problems because of the opportunity to make the world a better place, then problems, solutions, and philanthropy, mind's drug of choice. Just give me out, mind's. And if you will keep attention out because you enjoy the holiness or sacredness or specialness of the spiritual path, you can become a spiritual junkie who does not end the habit of outward attention in this. Instead, the spiritual path will become the drug of choice. Just give me out, mind says. Care what we're focused on. Mananasa occurs when one loses interest in all of attention's ploy, every drug of choice, and focuses attention forward. I just need to move this screen over a little bit. All right. I remember one day a few years ago, I was walking Jamie when suddenly struck by a realization, which felt incredible at the time. I saw that I am not a person. I am awareness. And I saw that awareness engrossed in outward attention programs the brain. The just programs are what appears to be the person. I knew then that if I, awareness, created the person, then I, awareness, could change that programming and the person would fall away. How does awareness program the brain and create the sense of person? Through outward attention. When outward something as important, that creates an imprint on the brain, and that becomes a part of the person. How does awareness change the programming and disengage from the sense of person? Let everything be as it is without deciding that one thing has more importance than another. This is called equanimity. The loving all method is a practice that leads to equanimity. Another practice that helps one deprogram the sense of person from the brain is awareness watching awareness meditation. Seeing oneself as unaffected awareness, as the joy of being, and being happy with that alone, deprograms the brain from the sense of person. It is important not to slip back into wanting and not wanting. Wanting and not wanting is making some things more important than others. Making some things more important than others creates imprints on the brain. Imprints create the sense of person. It is important to be happy with being, with only being. If one is happy with only being, happiness is constant. If happiness is constant, one has attained equanimity. With equanimity, brain programming that sees things as different is undone. When brain programming that sees things as different is undone, the sense of person is undone. Returns to its pristine original state. Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Jesus. Be at one with everything through allowing as it is. Be happy with it as it is. Be at peace with it as it is. This is the person. This is the gentle awakening. It takes courage to choose the path of equanimity. It takes courage because to the mind, to thought and outward attention, some things do appear more important than others. It takes courage to ignore mind's judgments and choose to be happy and at peace with all things exactly as they are. It takes courage and courage from understanding. When one understands the process of programming the brain through judgment, one also understands of deprogramming the brain through equanimity. When one understands, one can take courage and choose. When attention becomes comfortable in the heart, it does not seek outwardly anymore. Why? Because attention is a taster. It tastes. When attention is out, effects of out. The effects of out are angst, worry, stress, fear, constriction, and bondage. When attention is in, it tastes in. The effects of in are happiness, contentment, peace, liberty. Attention is also wise. It knows in tastes better than out. Attention becomes accustomed to the sweet taste of in, it loses its desire for the sour taste of out. Those who crave out with unrecognized ferociousness simply haven't had a good bite of in. Oh, smart attention, surrender the time that is given to the heart. Dive deep into in and taste the sweet. Mind's desire is out because mind, outward attention, shining through a programmed brain, thinks it is an entity. But when death comes to the body, the programmed brain to function, just like the robot's motherboard ceases to function when the robot's circuits are blown. Out attracts mind, but mind will die. Therefore, there is no lasting value in out. Value rests in with life awareness. The ghost of delusion is the phantom attention going out through the programmed brain. That is all the sense of self is. Temporary. As temporary as this body's life. It is like electricity identifying with the frail light bulb. Oh, attention, look carefully. Which are you more like? Thought or life awareness? Which is your source and your home? Reincarnation is easy to understand. A person does not reincarnate. A person is merely attention aimed outward through a programmed brain. It is the child of life awareness that reincarnates. It is consciousness turned outward through that reincarnates. Outward attention, addicted to outward attention, seeks outward. It finds outward through a body, but when the body dies, it seeks another body to fulfill craving for out. The body is like the peephole that allows the peeping Tom to get his kicks. The peephole is taken away, but the addiction of peeping still exists. The peeping Tom desperately seeks peephole. That craving is the source of reincarnation. The body-mind is more like than a dumb peephole. It is also an attraction device. Like a magnet, attracts the brain. It attracts the show the brain is programmed to look for. If the brain is programmed, it attracts a victim show. If the brain is programmed to look for I am bad, it attracts an I. If the brain is programmed to look for worrisome events, it attracts a worrisome show. The peephole and the show it attracts are solely related to outward attention, which does not look out, does not experience the peephole or the show that it attracts. The addiction of outward attention is exasperated by the fact that outward attention doesn't see itself. If it knew it was merely peeping, it could easily decide to stop whenever it, which it might do when the outer show turned into a nightmare. But the peeping Tom has forgotten it is a peeping Tom. It thinks it is the peephole. Since the peephole not only sees, but smells, feels, and hears too, the dynamic nature of the peephole supports the delusion that outward attention appears through. Like any addiction, the addiction of outward attention craves stability. It wants permanent satisfaction. It doesn't really want to seek and seek and seek again. However, it has lost the contact with the source of permanent satisfaction, which is within, and trying to find that which can never be found out. In its desperation, it fools it. Every little taste of temporary satisfaction is overvalued as sustainability, even though it clearly isn't. This self-lie supports continued outward searching and enables continuation. Meanwhile, outward attention thinking it is the body, seeking sustain in the outward play, continues the process of programming the brain, which strengthens the sense of a person, and the plot or trap thickens. The body dies while the addiction continues. The addiction creates another body, and the play plays on differently this time. Pleasure is like, it is not sustainable happiness. It is the hook that keeps attention addicted out. A key practice of mine. I am in the world many more hours a day than I am in meditation. So a practice keeps attention with truth. A practice that discriminates between what is real and what isn't, very important for me. But equanimity alone does not have the power that equanimity plus meditation has. With equanimity, I remain joyous, unaffected, by whatever arises during the day, but must still go to the details of the day. Attention is outward with remembrance of the heart. Meditation, attention lives in and out is ignored. Every ounce of attentive energy used to rest in the heart, in awareness, watching awareness. Meditation is my day. So thank you, Regina, for always sharing your guidance freely, and thank you for asking me to read.
And thank you, Lynn, for reading. Again, the topic today is, what if consciousness is an addict? That from Queen, Don't Stop Me Now, I think is just the perfect symbol of that addiction. That addiction is outward attention. Attention directed outward is called mind. I think when people hear the word mind, they think of many different things. But in my deepest contemplation, what I've seen as the core of mind is just simply outward attention. That is what mind is. And when I see that, the term mananasa is not so frightening. Mananasa, which I know many of you have heard, especially Eastern spiritual teachers talk about, is mind death or mind destruction. You know, oftentimes people in our culture don't like it when they hear teachers like Ramana Maharshi talk about destroying the mind. But if you simplify that by seeing the mind as outward attention, we're merely talking about destroying the habit of being focused outward. And that's not so scary, is it? So attention directed outward is called mind. And to awaken mind, or that addiction to outward attention, needs to be destroyed. It's really the reversal of an unconscious habit, because that's what staring outward through thought at a world is. It's an unconscious habit. It's the habit of focusing outward. As I contemplated this, I realized I have in my lifetime, through practice, taken on many unconscious habits, beginning from the time that I was a baby. I learned to walk, and while I was learning to walk, although I don't remember, I've observed other babies, so I know that meant there were a lot of falls. But I kept getting up, and I kept trying again. Now I walk consciously, automatically. I don't have to concentrate on how to take that next step, on how to maintain my balance. It's the same thing with the English language, not only speaking it, but reading it and writing it. And again, I don't remember learning to speak. I don't even really directly remember learning how to read or write, but I've watched other children. I've watched how they focus learning to read and learning to write. And they make mistakes along the way, lots of mistakes, but they keep trying. And then they eventually speak, read, and write unconsciously. I don't have to stop and wonder what this word means. I don't have to sound it out. Condition. You know, I know that says conditioning. It's an automatic habit. As I wrote in the journal, it's like riding a bike. If we put enough practice into something that we really want to learn, it becomes an unconscious habit. This is why you may sometimes hear regarding focusing in or focusing on awareness, you may sometimes hear it takes effort, and you may sometimes hear it's effortless. Because just like learning any other unconscious habit, it takes effort until it's effortless. Both are true. Just like for you, walking is hopefully effortless. As we age, sometimes that reverses a little. But there is an additional challenge here. When we were babies learning to walk, we weren't addicted to crawling. When we were babies learning to speak, We weren't addicted to babbling. When we were young children, learning to read, write, and ride a bike, we weren't addicted to that state of being read to, not being able to ride a bike. So there is an additional challenge here. And the additional challenge is that we are addicted to outward attention. So that means it's going to take a stronger desire. It might take more effort. We might fall down more before that unconscious habit is finally reversed, so that instead of looking out, we find ourselves unconsciously, automatically, and effortlessly peering in. As I contemplated all of this, I went beyond this lifetime. I began to see that, of course, it's not the person that's addicted to looking out. It's the attention itself. I realized one day a few years ago when I was walking my dog Jamie, it just kind of hit me that the brain is, like a piece of clay, and it's completely malleable. And that what we do from the time that we're born with our outward attention is that we are forming, they call them neuropathways in the brain. I'm just going to call them programming. Some people call them conditioning. But we're forming those neuropathways based on what we observe. And I realize that this continues way into adulthood, that as we decide one thing is more important than another, as we are giving meaning to what we see, we continue the programming of the brain. And in fact, I also realized that the effect, listen to this, the effect of programming the brain with attention is thought. Thought is what is produced by that effect, by that programming. So as we pay attention to thought, which we do a lot as an adult, it's like a loop where every time we pay attention to thought, we're continuing the programming and deepening the programming. So the programming process begins as a young child prior to language by observing the world and without language making determinations and programming the brain, by practicing new habits over and over and programming the brain so that we can crawl and we can walk and we can understand language and we can speak. But then as thought becomes the effect of that programming, we start to become engrossed in our own thought, and it furthers the programming. And I also realized that's where the sense of person comes from. That's why I say I'm someone who likes to hike. I'm someone who prefers puppies to football. If my brain was programmed differently, I might be someone who doesn't like to go out and walk at all. I might be someone who tries to shorten the distance I have to walk every day. And I might be someone who way prefers football to puppies. The sense of person just comes from the programming in the brain. The outward attention shining through that programming that was developed over one lifetime is who I think I am. And the interesting thing about that, when this body dies, that brain dies, and that programming ends, and that sense of person is over. Think about it. If all the sense of person is outward attention shining through programming, it's carved into a piece of flesh. When that piece of flesh dies and returns to dust, or ashes during the cremation process, whichever comes first, there's no more sense of person because that brain is gone. So what is addicted? It can't be the sense of person, because the addiction was there before the brain programming, before the sense of person. It was through the outward attention addiction that the brain was programmed in the first place. So what's addicted? It has to be consciousness. It has to be consciousness itself that's addicted to outward attention. And as I contemplated this deeper, I realized, oh my God, that's what causes reincarnation. You know, the consciousness that's addicted to outward intention needs a body brain to look through and to program in order to have that sense of person, in order to have that world and that drama, in order to fulfill that addiction. I mean, just think of that song, Don't Stop Me Now, Don't Stop Me Now. Remember that addiction, that addiction, that addiction. This is the vehicle of the addiction, the body. And so when the body dies, if the addiction still exists, that don't stop me now still exists. You know, just like if you were addicted to heroin, when the high that came from one needle ends, you go seeking the next needle. Right? If you're addicted to alcohol, when the high that comes from one bottle ends, you go seeking the next bottle. Well, when the high that comes from outward attention ends after the death of a body, you go seeking the next body. It's easy. This is easy to see. It's easy to see what causes reincarnation. A lot of people think that it's the person that reincarnates somehow, but it's not, because the person is nothing but brain programming that's going to end when that flesh ends. It's the consciousness. And you aren't the person. You've never been the person. That's just the programming that you believe in. You're the consciousness. And what's interesting about this addiction is the addiction is merely for outward attention, which means it doesn't matter how I get my kicks. I mean, you know, I don't have to use heroin. There are other drugs I can use too. You know, so one way to get my kicks is clearly pleasure. I say pleasure is the heroin. You know, I can love this world. I can love this life. Everything can be great. And I am focused out on it because it's great and because I love it. Pleasure. This is why Eastern masters talk about pleasure as being part of the problem. You see, if the problem is outward addiction, and if pleasure is my drug of choice, it keeps me out. But pleasure isn't the only drug. Suffering can most definitely keep my attention out. Sometimes we wonder, you know, why people stay addicted when it's suffering. Logically, you'd think suffering would turn that attention around, but it doesn't, because the addiction is so strong. And the suffering gives me something to pay attention to complain about, to identify with. You know, both suffering and pleasure are the same thing. They're drugs to an addicted outward attention. Saving the world, philanthropy, right? Politics, all of that stuff, trying to save the world, trying to make the world a better place, trying to resolve this problem or that problem. Where is your attention going? Out. It's just another drug of choice. And what NTI points out is that the spiritual path can become the same thing. You know, our spiritual path can be an outward focused, I like the music, I like the teachers, I like the like-minded people, I like the clothes, I like the statues, all out, right? All out. That's why NTI calls the spiritual path a double-edged sword. You know, it says you can spend your life going nowhere, right, on the spiritual path, which means that you haven't reversed the outward attention addiction at all. So I think that when we look at this, if we look at this using the symbol, assuming it is a symbol, of consciousness addicted to outward attention, a lot of these teachings start making sense. We start understanding the problem with pleasure. You know, we start understanding the problem with philanthropy or trying to save the world, or politics, trying to solve the problems. You know, because those things sound good to the mind. They don't sound like problems. Pleasure is great. Solving, you know, saving the world is great. But if you understand that you are consciousness and you are addicted to outward attention, then you understand those are just drugs. And what if the purpose of human existence is to help heal that addiction? What if we were given the ability, Bernadette Roberts talks about how the mind, for humans only, the mind bends on itself so that the mind can see the mind, or so that awareness can see awareness. What if this creation in consciousness was created so that we could become aware of the addiction and then find the awareness, watching awareness method of healing that addiction? Now, again, if we don't, when we die, the addiction continues and another body is reincarnated. But that's not me, the person. That's not my next lifetime. Because this person is nothing but programming in a brain that is going to die when the brain dies. Disidentifying from the person as who I am is an important part of helping me heal my own addiction. I, consciousness. First, I have to realize I'm not the person. But when I realize I'm consciousness, and I've forgotten myself, and I want to return home to myself, and that outward attention is the only problem, and inward attention is the only solution, it makes things simple. Another thing that's interesting is the body is like a peephole to this addicted consciousness, but it's not that simple. It's not just a peephole. The body is a peephole that sees, smells, tastes, feels, and hears. So when the attention is going out, that really is a vibrant high. Oh my God, don't stop me now. Think of that song by Queen. It's a vibrant high because of the senses. And also the attention, which is much more subtle than its own peephole. The attention gets so caught up in the vibrant energy of the peephole that it starts to kind of identify with the peephole itself, which kind of makes the problem a little more difficult. Not only do we have a habit of looking out, but we're addicted to the habit of looking out, and we've even forgotten we're the looking out. We think we are the peephole, the body. So I'm not saying that this is easy to resolve. I'm saying it's simple. It's simple to understand that out is the problem, in is the answer. But because the addiction is somewhat complicated, it will take effort to reverse the unconscious habit of looking out until it becomes an effortless unconscious habit of looking in. Now, other than being addicted to outward attention, maybe chocolate. I've never been addicted to anything. We have people here who have been. And they can probably speak better than I can about how difficult it can be to let go of a genuine addiction, right? Not just a habit. There is a difference between a habit and an addiction. An addiction is one level harder. I saw a TV show not too long ago, The Good Doctor, where one of the patients that came in had been addicted to opioids. And she now had a severely broken leg. It was mangled in all directions. And they needed to go in and put in a steel rod and then put nails through the bone and nail it to the steel rod. And she said, without anesthesia. And they're like, you're crazy. You're crazy. And she said, look, I'm an opioid addict. I've been clean for, I think it was 8 years. I have this lovely husband, this lovely daughter. I know that if you give me anesthesia, my body is going to go right back to being addicted. She says, I'm not going back there again. And of course, they spent most of the show trying to talk her into changing her mind. But in the end, she went through that surgery without anesthesia. And her leg was fixed. And she did not become an addict again. And I contemplated that and I thought, my God, the desire to be free, to remain free. You know, what a symbol. You know, Michael Langford talks about how important this really intense desire for freedom is, this really intense desire for liberation. The Course talks about a little willingness in the beginning, and I do think we need a little willingness in the beginning. But I think in order to permanently reverse this addiction, we need that intense desire for freedom that that woman in that TV show had. Or there was just no way she was going back. And you know, we hear stories from Bernadette Roberts, from Muji. We hear stories about how when you are getting closer and closer to healing that addiction, sometimes what shows up are images that appear holy or otherworldly. You know, like the story of the yogini and how these divine persons came to see her, you know. And what you have to be very, very, very clear on, just like this woman was in The Good Doctor, the addiction is outward attention. This is not an exception, right? For her, the addiction was the opioid. The surgery was not an exception. So when these magnificent consciousness, holy, otherworldly stuff begins to happen, you got to notice, pay attention to, attention is going out to those things. Let's bring the attention back in. You know, Course in Miracles says one problem, one solution. Let's keep it simple. Not easy, I'm saying, but simple. The problem is out. The solution is in. Anything that pulls our attention out is a drug. Now, there are two tools, primary tools that I use to keep me moving in. One is stronger than the other, but both are necessary. One, in my journal, I called equanimity. The way I began practicing it was chapter 15 of Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, which was a commitment to unconditional happiness. The way that I have taught it in Gentle Healing is Michael Langford's The Loving All Method. But if you keep in mind that the brain is programmed, when we look out and we start saying some things are more important than other things, and this is what the beginning of the Course workbook is about, right? We're giving it meaning, right? That's how the brain is programmed. That's how the sense of person comes about. That's how we, consciousness, get addicted to the peephole as who I am, right? Then you realize the power of equanimity as a practice, because equanimity is not making those determinations anymore. It's not saying this is more important than this. This has more value than this. It's agreeing to be happy with everything, or to love everything, or to at least accept everything, or to at least allow everything. But you see the straight line? And since the brain is programmed through the differences, through the seeing differences and making decisions about differences, the equanimity, the practice of equanimity, allows that programming to start to dry up. It's a part of undoing the person. Now, it's not the most potent practice. The most potent practice is the awareness, watching awareness meditation. And the reason for that is when we're practicing equanimity, we are moving about in the world. We can't bring all of the attention in. You know, because I have to drive this car, I have to, you know, talk to this person, I have to do this work task, I have to cook this meal without burning my hand on, you know, on the hot dish. I have to remember to get the pot holder before I take it out of the oven. You know, so you can't bring all of the attention in when you're not in meditation. And I don't know about you guys, but even though I am increasing my meditation, certainly still right now, there are many more hours that I'm out in the world than I'm in meditation. So in meditation, I can be 100% in. You know, the mind tries to pull you out during meditation, but I'm not taking salmon out of the oven. I'm not driving a car. I'm not talking to someone. I'm not doing a work task. I'm sitting there in a chair, a perfectly safe chair in a perfectly safe room with my eyes closed. So during meditation, I can go all the way in. I don't need any attention out. So that's the most potent way to reverse the habit, reverse the addiction. Right? Because I can just really dive in. But when I'm out in the world, and again, I'm out in the world more hours a day right now than I'm sitting with eyes closed, right? I do have to pay attention. So equanimity is the practice then. It's the practice of, you know, it's funny. It's actually the practice of discrimination. It's discriminating between what's important and what's not important, meaning what's important is not getting caught up in the out, even when I'm walking about the out. But the funny thing about this discrimination is you discriminate that by being non-discriminating with everything else, right? You're discriminating that not being involved, not being attached is more important than being involved or being attached. That's the discrimination. But by doing that, I also have to let go of the discrimination that, dang it, I want Diet Coke, not a Coke, right? Yesterday, I ordered something in a restaurant, and the waiter brought me something different than I ordered. And I ordered it, you know, for a particular reason. I kind of try to eat light, and what he brought would have been, you know, more calories, more fat. And I ate it, and I loved it. In fact, what my mind said was, God brought me this. You know, apparently it's important that I eat this now and not get too caught up on always having to eat light, right? It's okay that I ordered light, but God brought me this. You see, to send it back, I mean, it's okay to send it back if it's spoiled. It's okay to send it back if there's a, you know, dead rat paw in it. It's okay to send it back if you're allergic. But to send it back just because it wasn't my preference, that's confusion when you're trying to undo this outward attention addiction. Because that's saying this, what I wanted and why I wanted it, is more important than that. I'm right, you're wrong. Brain programming continues, sense of person exists, and outward attention is getting its drug. Don't stop me now. He brought me the wrong thing. Let me get out here and get all excited about this. Love everything. That's simple also. Maybe not always easy, which is why Michael Langford always gives us, if you can't love it, then accept it. If you can't accept it, then emotionally allow it. But it's simple. We just have to quit forgetting out of our addiction, right? Just like when you're near the end and those divine beings start showing up, you have to notice you're going out and bring your attention back in, like the great yogini did. When you're in the world and you start getting excited about things, excited about, you know, and your attention starts going out, right? You have to pull it back to equanimity, which, you know, equanimity, I don't know about the word with you guys. Another word that's often used is dispassion. You know, those words sound kind of boring, kind of ho-hum. But really, we're talking about consistent happiness, unconditional happiness, whether you bring me what I wanted at the restaurant or not. We're talking about loving all, whether it's the food I ordered or not. And these are the simple places where we fail. It gets, and if we can't master the simple things, do you think we can master the more complicated? You know, what if we are easy on ourselves, since this is such a challenging addiction, and we start simple? Maybe we start by practicing equanimity with the little things, and then we gradually increase it to the things that are more challenging. And maybe we start meditating half an hour a day, and we gradually increase it to 4 or 5 hours a day. You know, we have mercy on ourselves because it's a complicated addiction. But we understand that the purpose of the human lifetime, the reason we were given the abilities that we have, which dogs don't have, as cute as they are, the reason we were given the ability we have is so that we can reverse the addiction. And remember that if we die, meaning the person, the body, the brain, and the addiction's not healed, the addiction will continue on and another body will be created. But what if that attention is at least less addicted, less interested in the outward addiction than it was before? Then maybe the next body it creates will already have some of that inner focus involved. You know, we've heard this happening. They seem like spiritual prodigies when they're born, but that's just the attention, the consciousness is not as addicted as it was, and it already has the healing energy involved. It's great if we become enlightened in this lifetime, but we have to, the person doesn't become enlightened. It's the reversal of the consciousness habit. And if that consciousness habit reversal isn't complete in this lifetime, it will continue to complete itself. Let's just give it the step forward, the best step forward that we can. That's our purpose. Our purpose is to help our self, our real self, consciousness, heal this outward attention addiction. All right, so thank you for playing that song. I think it supports the teaching completely. I do want to say that Awakening Together is run on your donations. So if you feel guided to donate, we do appreciate it. It allows us to provide all of these services. Not just referring to the weekly gathering. Also, Lynn and I both had internet challenges today, I guess. And as she pointed out, her reading was choppy. So Dawn, I will put this in PDF format and send it to you. You can upload it with the audio, post it with the audio. And that way, if anybody wants to read and contemplate the reading, they may do so. We don't have much time, but if there's someone who would like to share, we can probably take a sharing from one person. I'd absolutely love to do that. So who has something they would like to say? Okay, Sharon. Sharon's going to share for us.
I love you. I just love you. I'm in such gratitude, you know, because what's happening in my process is that Sharon seems to not, that the identity of Sharon seems to have fallen away a lot. And it is consciousness, and I'm getting more clarity of presence, stronger. And I love all of you. I just do. I'm so glad just to freedom, you know, and the love. And what a beautiful teacher you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, you know, when you practice equanimity, it's wonderful to hear that, but it needs to be equally wonderful for those who think I'm completely wrong and heading in the wrong direction. Otherwise, I'm not practicing equanimity. And I do get both, which is wonderful. It's about being happy no matter what, right? Happy no matter what. So in a moment, we'll be turning the mic over to Dawn and to Jay. And if any of you all want to continue sharing about this during the fellowship, please do. I am going to ask Dawn to play the final song. We started with Queen, representing the addiction. We're going to end with the Beatles, pointing to the cure, which is to get back. And that's it. I'm done. Dawn, the mic is yours.
Thank you for watching. This was our weekly gathering that we hold online. For more information, you can visit our website at awakening-together.org, or you can subscribe to our Awakening Together channel and click the bell for more notifications when we post our weekly gatherings. Thank you again for watching.